My parents left me homeless for my golden child sister. Years later, I got the ultimate revenge at her wedding. Growing up, I always knew my sister, Lily, was the favorite. I was the accident, the unwanted second child, while she was the miracle my parents had prayed for. Everything she did was celebrated, and everything I did was criticized. She got dance lessons, music classes, and expensive vacations. I got hand-me-downs, forgotten birthdays, and lectures about how I should be more like her. By the time I was 18, I had already accepted that I was never going to be enough for them. But I still held out hope that one day, they'd see me for who I was. That illusion shattered when I was 19. One day my parents sat me down with somber expressions. I thought for a brief moment that they were finally going to apologize for how they had treated me. Instead, they told me they needed me to move out. Immediately. Lily, at 17, had gotten into an expensive private university across the country. They couldn't afford her tuition and her luxury dorm expenses unless they sold my car, emptied my college savings, and turned my room into a rental space for extra income. I begged them to reconsider, but they refused. "This is for the good of the family," my mother said. "You'll understand when you have kids." Except I was their kid, and they were throwing me away like garbage. With nowhere to go, I spent the next few years struggling. I crashed on friends' couches, worked 2 jobs, and barely scraped by. Meanwhile, Lily flourished. My parents funded her dream life. Pictures of her vacations, parties, and achievements flooded social media while I was eating instant noodles in a cheap shared apartment. I went no contact with them after a particularly nasty call where my mother called me selfish for refusing to help pay Lily's student loans after they stole my college fund. Years passed and I built a life for myself. I put myself through school, got a stable job, and even met someone who loved me, Ryan. He was everything my family wasn't: kind, supportive, and fiercely protective of me. Then out of nowhere, I got a message from Lily. She was getting married, and she wanted me to be her maid of honor. The audacity left me speechless, but curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to meet for coffee. Lily greeted me like nothing had happened, like she hadn't taken everything from me. She gushed about her wedding, how our parents were paying for it, and how she wanted me to stand beside her. I sipped my coffee, keeping my face neutral. "Why me?" I asked. "We haven't spoken in years." Lily pouted. "You're my sister. It would mean so much to Mom and Dad. You wouldn't ruin my wedding over the past, would you?" I realized then that this wasn't about making amends. This was about appearances. She wanted to parade me around to show what a perfect family we were. That's when I decided I would go, but not for the reason she thought. The wedding was extravagant, a fairy tale venue, hundreds of guests, and decorations that probably cost more than my entire rent for a year. I played my part perfectly, smiling, posing for photos, and giving a heartwarming speech about family and forgiveness. My parents beamed at me, thinking I had finally come around. Then came the reception. As guests clinked their glasses and cheered for the happy couple, I took the microphone. "I just want to say how honored I am to be here today," I began, my voice steady. "It really warms my heart that after all these years, Lily still thinks of me." A few people chuckled. My parents smiled proudly. I turned to Lily. "You know, growing up, I always admired you. You were everything Mom and Dad wanted, and they made sure you had it all, even if it meant taking from me." The room shifted uncomfortably. Lily's smile faltered. "But today isn't about the past," I continued. "It's about celebrating Lily and the wonderful person she's become, and I have a special gift for you both." I pulled out an envelope and handed it to her. Lily hesitated before opening it, then her face drained of color. Inside were printed screenshots, messages between her fiancé and another woman, dozens of them, explicit, undeniable proof that he had been cheating on her for months. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People whispered. My parents looked horrified. Lily's fiancé turned red. This isn't real," he stammered. "Oh, but it is," I said, my voice dripping with mock sympathy. I figured if family is so important, you'd want to know the truth before you made the biggest mistake of your life. Lily's hands trembled. How did you? I smiled. I met the woman last month. Turns out she didn't know he was engaged. She was devastated when she found out. We had a nice chat. Lily turned to her fiancé. Is this true? She demanded, her voice shaking. He stuttered, but the evidence was overwhelming. The guests murmured, scandalized. Then, just when I thought the moment couldn't get any better, the woman from the messages walked in. I had invited her. She stood at the entrance, her expression unreadable. She locked eyes with Lily's fiancé, and the blood drained from his face. I thought you said you weren't seeing anyone else, she said, her voice calm but cutting. Murmurs turned to full-blown chaos as Lily's fiancé tried to sputter out an excuse. Lily turned to him, her eyes blazing. You disgusting liar, she screamed, throwing the envelope at him. In front of everyone? At our wedding? My parents tried to intervene, but Lily was beyond reason. She ripped off her veil and threw it onto the ground, her perfectly crafted bridal image crumbling before everyone's eyes. The guests began whispering in full force now. Some pulled out their phones. The live band awkwardly stopped playing. The air was thick with scandal, and I drank it in like the finest champagne. Her fiancé tried to approach her, hands raised in defense. Lily, please, let's just talk about this. Talk about what? She snapped. How you were screwing someone else while I was planning our life together? I stood back, watching as the perfect world my parents built for her came crashing down. Lily's mother, our mother, turned to me with fury. How could you do this to your sister? I laughed, an actual, genuine laugh. You mean how could I tell her the truth? The truth that you should have warned her about. My father clenched his jaw. You ruined everything. No, Dad, I said, my voice steady. She ruined everything. I just made sure she saw it before it was too late. Lily, now shaking with anger, turned to me. Did you plan this? Did you set me up? I tilted my head. I didn't make him cheat, Lily. I just made sure you found out before it was too late. She glared at me, but deep down she knew I was right. Her fairy tale had always been a lie. It just took her until today to realize it. With that, I stepped back, letting the disaster unfold. My parents seethed, but they couldn't undo what had just happened. Finally, after years of being the forgotten child, I had their full attention. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly free.